Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7. That was my number in high school, so maybe this will be lucky for us. We'll see. You know, I've learned over time that when somebody's talking about something you really don't want to talk about, you just can always throw in there, hey, I knew this guy once, and then just pretty much make up whatever you want to, and they won't listen to it. They'll get off track. And you don't have to talk about the uncomfortable thing anymore. Coach, like we do every week, tell everybody where you grew up and where you're from. Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA. Proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 7. As usual on Sunday evenings, I'm joined with the Executive Director of the Georgia Fired Football Coaches Association, Coach Ed Gafca, and your boy MOCS, bringing y'all the latest and greatest after one round of playoffs. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the first round, lateral region moves, the coaching carousel as always, and second round previews. Coach, thanks for being on with me as usual.
Thanks for having me, Coach.
Well, the first round is over, and after I'm going to have a few things to say about it. We didn't perform at all. We didn't give those people a game, and I'll take blame for a lot of that. And a good football team, very well coached. They played hard, and they got us. What I'm not going to take the blame for, and I'm not complaining about our situation. We handled the travel pretty well, but just things I noticed on the way home from the mountains, which I loved, by the way. Driving home at 2 o'clock in the morning, I ain't home yet. That's a problem. I ain't close to home. And I passed the Statesboro bus leaving from Hab Central, and you know, I passed several groups. I passed them. I passed Putnam County coming in the opposite direction. I saw Glen Academy had a 5.5 hour ride. And before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of the games and things that shocked us and things that went about like we thought they went, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the solution is, but traveling over 2 hours for a first region game is ridiculous. It's unsafe for the coaches, the families, and the players. People are going to say, well, they do it in the third round. Yeah, I get that. But first round games, having to travel that far, good Lord, Ringgold drove down from Chattanooga to Pierce County. I hope they left Wednesday. I know they didn't, but it's more things that have to be worked out with this power rating thing and how it's going forward. And, you know, we heard from a member of the executive committee last week, and it's a work in progress, and I understand that. But my biggest concern, Coach, is the travel and people driving when they ain't got no business being out at night in the middle of the night to get back home.
Oh, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, at some point, you know, having the PSR and having these things set up how they are, you know, you do have the ability to have the human element of common sense as well. So, to me, if you can look at it and be, hey, it's round one, we don't need, you know, teams making 4.5, 5 hour, 6 hour drives for round one. You know, you should be able to use some common sense customer service to a certain degree, right? If it makes sense, if it's not going to be a strain on the smaller schools or even some of these big schools that, again, that's not a cheap bus ride. Some teams aren't going to be able to go up early, stay the night at a hotel and do those things. A lot of teams aren't. So from my standpoint, just seeing how many people had to travel so far, you know, Washington Wilkes had to go all the way to Seminole County. And that was a late game. They upset Seminole County and beat them. But I don't know what time they could have even gotten back to campus. Um, but it was probably really, really early Saturday morning. At least they got it home with a win. If you're one of those teams that are traveling so far, and now you got to get back on the bus, and you don't get home until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and now you have kids that are going to get in their cars and drive home. You're going to have parents out on the road. You're going to just have a mess of issues. It's common sense customer service. Just you don't need to say, well, it's the PSR rating, so it tells it where it should go. Yeah, I get it. It tells you who the 32 teams are, for sure. But let's use a little bit more effective judgment and be the adults in the room.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not like I bring people on here to have an echo chamber or anything like that. But the man of Constantino can say, as he speaks in the third person, that I don't care about our travel had nothing to do with the outcome of what went on. And I'm not suggesting that travel has anything to do with the outcome. The better coached and better team that executes better is probably going to win 98.6% of the time. And that's fine. My whole issue is with the safety of the student athlete. We make cute commercials during the dome week, and we put we buckle up and don't vape and don't text and drive, and we support our student. But you're going to be driving home at 4 o'clock in the morning after your first round. Good luck with that during deer season. But anyway, with that being said, what were some of your takeaways, starting with the bigger classifications, if you have any, on the round one playoff games? Everything kind of went chalk for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, the biggest takeaway in our highest classification there to me was Walton, I guess County. I don't know if they still want me to use Walton County, but they say Walton now. Diamond W. They got revenge after getting beat 50-17 in the Corky Kell week 1 against an undefeated McEachern team. A very good McEachern team. So that was a huge surprise. Credit to the Walton staff, coaches, and kids for getting over that mental hurdle of an embarrassment as its own fuel, right? Sometimes the right kind of kids have that fear of being embarrassed and they never want to do it again. So they work extra hard and they say, listen, if we get another shot at this team, that's not going to be the same result. They're going to come away with a little bit more respect. And now they're in a position to, again, keep the season going, play another week. So kudos to Walton on that. And then in 5A, Clark Central going down and upsetting Effingham. When I say Clark was probably, they were probably one of the worst looking Clark teams I think I've ever watched in 30 plus years, where they were getting beat like a rented mule by everybody. And over the last probably 4, 5, 6 weeks, they had a change at quarterback. Kid just is a point guard out there, does a great job getting the ball out. Defense playing a lot better. For them to go down there and storm back after being down a couple possessions late and being able to upset that team, as a 3 seed going against the 2, kudos to them. And then from 4A standpoint, obviously Blessed Train beating Stockbridge I thought was big. Everything else is kind of chalk there. I thought Ware County and Flyer Branch was one of the better games in 4A, though. Both teams really went back and forth, and Ware County traveled well. Kids played well. Jason Strickland had the team ready, and Michael Perry did a great job offensively for Flyer Branch to get them just kind of haymakers back and forth. But yeah, so from an upper classification, that was kind of the big picture takeaway. Did you have an opportunity to take a look at any of those?
I did not. I did get to listen to Score Atlanta show on the way home, and they did a great job of providing scores and things like that. But man, I put it on 441 and went downhill all the way. I was just trying to make sure I didn't have anybody riding with me, so I was trying to make sure I made it home without putting it in a ditch somewhere. So I didn't really pay much attention to any of the upper level scores. Like I didn't realize that Walton upset McEachern. That is huge. Um, Very surprising. Like you said, it's hard to beat a good team twice. And that first game of the season, you have all summer to get ready for it. And I know Coach Reed's doing a great job at McEachern and getting that thing back to where everyone remembers McEachern always being. And I mean, I thought you hit the nail on the head with some of those. I didn't see. I was a little surprised. Not surprised that they won, but Warner Robins over Eastside. I was led to believe that Eastside was the greatest defense in the history of ever, and Coach Shane Sams, and on his birthday was able to get his demons. They've hit their stride. It appears they got hot at the right time, and they're gonna ride the wave with that. And we'll see what happens there. Now the lower classifications, I will say, everyone that keeps up with it knows that the biggest upset was Berrien over Lamar, a 32-1, and now Berrien gets to ride up. They get to make a 7-hour trip up to Rabun County and take them, who were big winners over Dodge County this weekend. And the next to the, I'd say the Washington Wilkes win over Seminole was probably unexpected in lower A. I didn't see anything else in lower A that really jumped out at me. Everything kind of chalked it up. Double A, I didn't really keep up with. I'm sure there were a couple of upsets, and same with Triple A, but nothing that was out of the ordinary. I was surprised. I will say this: I was shocked that Crisp County was up 21-0 on Stevens County at half. And I'd also like to thank the people at Stevens County for letting us do our walkthrough and everything there. First-rate people, great facility, beautiful place up there at Stevens County. I know a guy that's SPED certified that can coach wherever you need him to. Just throwing that out there. And anyway, that kind of shocked me that they were able to come back in that scenario.
Yeah, that's the thing is the game. I clicked it on early in the game, and yeah, Chris was kind of in the in control. And really, I watched I guess it was the first drive of the third quarter. They had Stevens was driving, and ultimately ended up, I think, turning it over right there. So I clicked it off. Well, around 11 o'clock, heck, my phone's kind of blowing up about Stevens County making this comeback, and I think that's a testament to Stevens County coaches. I think it's a testament to those kids, and Chris County. When you get ahead in a game like that, not knocking Chris County coaches at all, because I know that it wasn't for lack of being creative or trying, but sometimes that comes across as maybe your team isn't disciplined enough to kind of overcome some of that adversity piece. And I don't know Chris County, but to me, when you have everything going your way, the moment something changes, and it just felt like that was kind of what took place for Stevens County. So hopefully Chris is able to mature from this and move on next year and be able to learn from this, because it's a good learning experience. Now I will say in AAA, Oconee and Northwest Whitfield was another back and forth game, and Oconee ended up taking a game-winning field goal to upset Northwest Whitfield and get a big win. Again, Oconee has been a very consistent program over the last 10, 12 years, and they're going to be a difficult out for anybody because they rarely beat themselves. They run the football well, and they just do a lot of the little things right. That's how they play with Jefferson so well in the same region. Neither one of those teams beat themselves. They might not have the fastest kids or the strongest kids, but they're disciplined and they're going to be in the right spot to make the plays. And a lot of times they make those plays because they're so well coached. But yeah, so those were the between AA and AAA, like you said, in the D2, D1, Berrien, and Washington Wilkes. Those were definitely the two that I had circled are just a surprise. Everything else pretty much chalk though, which moving forward into round 2 and round 3, and as we get close to the dome, I think we're going to be in a situation where now it's an honor being one of the 32 best teams. Well, we just trimmed the fat here, so now we're getting down to brass tacks, and hopefully we're about to see some real competitive football games here in round 2.
Well, now we're going to transition into talking about the FTE counts of regions came out last week, and I understand that you want to talk a little bit about lateral region move requests and the ins and outs of that and who's asking to go where. I understand there were 17 appeals were approved and all the rest of them were told to kick rocks. And now we're going to fight over who wants to come into this region and that region. And my vote on region appeals, my 2 cents before you go on your rampage about it, is this. They put you there for a reason. You need to stay there. The end. That's all I got.
Well, and I can definitely understand that. Now, I'm going to self-appoint myself the lead negotiator for a couple of these teams here. In 7A, you had North Atlanta and Paulding both wanting to go from Region 4. North Atlanta from Region 4 to Region 3, Paulding going from 2 to 3. Now in 6A, you had Mountain View and Gainesville, who were both in that 7A region, the 6-7A one, where that's Alpharetta, Gainesville, Johns Creek, Lanier, Milton, Mountain View, Riverwood, and Roswell. And both Mountain View and Gainesville are trying to move over to the Region 8, which is Appalachia, Cedar, Clark, Habersham, Jackson County, Loganville, and Winder. And I want to say Walnut Grove might have been the other one that's in there, but I'm not positive. Now, here's the thing about that. There's only one reason for Gainesville and hell, even Mountain View to want to go over to that Region 8. It's a easier region to potentially win. If I'm Gainesville, I look at that and I don't have to play Roswell. I don't have to play Milton. I don't have Alpharetta added to my schedule. Shoot. That's the number one reason. Now, everybody knows that you can't come out and say that, but I would honestly give them a badge of courage right there, just coming out and saying it, because I know that their justification is going to be that it's definitely a shorter drive. And in reality, if I'm being honest, both Gainesville and Mountain View have a justification to be in that region. If you look at the map, Gainesville has to travel a lot farther to go to their region opponents than if they were to be in that Region 8. Mountain View, it's a little bit harder because they are a little bit further west, but they are close enough to, kind of south side of that region to where, you can make the justification. Now, if I'm Mountain View and I don't get this approved, 100% I'm going non-region. 100%. Because you're about to get a new coach. Them and Johns Creek in this region should meet together and say, hey, we're not going to play in this dang region because we're not even fighting for, fourth place. We are fighting for, who's the tallest midget, right? Like that right there is where we're at. We are not even on the same playing field. We don't have the amount of kids. Now, again, I think that if you are able to get in that Region 8, maybe, but I would be willing to bet that Clark Central's not going to be as bad as they were last year. Habersham's still going to be solid. Jackson County's still in a great spot to continue to, and now to defend that region title. Loganville, dumpster damn fire, but I would be willing to bet they're going to be a better football team next year. Appalachia, again, they're in a coach transition. They have an interim. I think that they're going to be a more competitive football team, and Winder always has kids. So to me, there is no guarantees in this, but if you want to really make a justification, man, I'd sit there and definitely harp on the fact that, from a travel standpoint, that expense, from a and not just football. This goes to having to go to those basketball games, midweek baseball games, soccer, all that stuff. It's a safer drive. You're not having to go up and down 85. You're not having to, do a lot of the similar things. So I'll be interested to see if they approve either one of those. Now, the lower request, you had Union trying to leave that kind of 8 triple to go to 7 triple, which 7 triple is just I think it's the Rock Mart, like it's all over there. It's more north central Georgia. And again, Union County is such a pain in the butt to get to. And it's a massive competitive advantage having to go up Blood Mountain, and your kids are throwing up, being on that bus, rocking back and forth. But it's really a difficult place to play when you get there, just because you you feel like you're at elevation. Swainsboro is trying to go to leave 3 AA to go to 2 AA, and then a bunch of 1A requests, kind of in your neck of the woods, with Irwin trying to go from 2A to 4, Truglin go from 3 to 4, Twiggs trying to go from 4 to 5, Bacon and Charter 2A to 1A, and Pelham going from 2A to 1A. So, I'd be interested to see what some of these justifications are, and can I please just get them to live stream this? I would love nothing more than to see the presentations of their justifications. Let us, maybe take a fan vote on that. Like see if we can't provide some commentary for these meetings, because I also see that the director's report, the executive director, will address the committee on several issues. Now, that is the executive director of the GHSA. That is not myself. I will also address the committee on several issues, but they're not gonna listen, but it'll be out there for them to digest. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I'm all for like you presented the case for the Gainesvilles. I mean, again, common sense being customer service piece. How in the world? I don't have a problem with that. If geographically, if the furthest opponent for the new region is going to be closer than the furthest opponent for the region you were assigned, I don't have a problem with that. Not at all. But it's you hit the nail on the head. It's not we're not talking about football. We're talking about a Tuesday night softball, baseball, flag football game, basketball game, that Thursday night game where you're driving an hour and a half and you're in the same region. That's ridiculous. They probably put you in the region you're supposed to be in. And this comes into play more in the lower classifications than in middle and south Georgia, where it's a little more rural, a little bit further to get places. But, there's just some of these schools that they're closer to the furthest opponent in their region that they assigned them to for a reason. They're going to be further away from the furthest opponent. And that Tuesday night, kids out on the road late, whatever. It's just, it's hard to do, but I think they hit the nail on the head with that. So we'll wrap that up right there. And the next section is brought to you, as always, by Bubba and Earl's Moving Company. Remember, you're always 2 men in a truck away from a better situation. If you don't like where you're at, they will pack you up and get you headed to the next spot you will be fired from. The coaching carousel is spinning wildly out of control for this time of year. It is as if some of these people, somebody asked me last week, Coach, they said, what in the world's going on? Do people just not want to do this anymore? Are they getting fired? Are these administrators, they're tired of dealing with them? I said, well, I think it's a lot of that. I think it's a lot of some of these guys are just stepping down and saying, you know what? I've fought the good fight, and I'm going up against people that I don't have equitable situations akin to. I can have less headache going somewhere else. And then there's the other half where administrators are coming in acting like they're SEC college presidents. And just like some of these major college football programs, they're firing their coaches and getting rid of their coaches. And my question is, unless you have someone in the building already, who are you going to get this better than what you had is my question. Because there's a small number of elite guys there. And if you think you're an elite program, and who do you think you're going to get that's going to leave their situation to come to your situation? we ran through the Camden County coming open, and we'll discuss that a little bit more. But I ran through it with somebody else, another coach up in North Georgia, and we just went from classification from 7A down, and you look at the guys that have the qualifications to be the head coach at Camden, that is having won a state championship as a head coach. And no, we couldn't come up with anybody until you got down to 3 or 4A that would think about leaving their current situation to go there. And they stayed in house, which they should have, and they hired a great coach, and he's going to do a great job, and they're trying to tap into the past there. But I think a lot of Camden's situation is they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They want to go to the spread, change the whole mentality of how they do things, and they're not in the Savannah region. They're not going to go 10-0 every year in the region. They're not. They're not going to have 10 warm-up games before they get ready for the playoffs. I mean, it was great for the Savannah schools because they got 3 schools in the playoffs every year, sometimes 4 for the other sports. But, it ain't like it used to be, and you got to figure it out. So with that, we'll go over the coaching openings. I just kind of touched on my views on Camden. Camden, Monday's Mill, Allatoona, Discovery, and McDonough came open last week. I'm sure there are a few others we missed because they started popping quickly, and there will be a heap more come open this week with people taking up costumes this weekend.
You're definitely right about that. I already have a tentative list of ones that are potentially coming open, but the reality is Camden County. I'd never hate to see people who know who they want to hire go out and get them, or hire them in the building. You don't need to hire assemble a staff to do a job search and go through 3 levels of interviews and all this other nonsense. If you know who you want to hire, get them an offer, get them signed up, and get to work. So kudos to them for doing that. Again, that's a hell of a job, just because you're going to get paid and your expectations are going to be really high. But the reality is, the region you're in, shoot, you want to talk about a difficult region. I think you might have a guaranteed victory against Tift, and nothing against Tift, but it's, Tift, you got the Chick-fil-A on your exit. That might be it. But, the reality is you're in a tough region regardless, and trying to schedule non-region, you're kind of out there on the island. So good luck to them. I have a lot of respect for the Camden program. Now, Allatoona is another job that I put as a kind of a stepping stone job, just because historically it's been a pretty competitive job. And, this will be their 3rd head football coach in the program's history. Apparently it's just not a very patient group up there from an admin standpoint. Coach Smith had been there, I want to say this was year 3, year 4. And, they went 3-7. They had Cass and Cartersville in their region. It is very, very difficult. And every game that they were in, every game was competitive. So I understand that winning is the standard, but, I would like to see people, again, take a little bit more common sense approach at things and stand. Can I just get a athletic director and administration to stand, beside their coach, even in front of their coach at times, to be like, guys, this is who we want leading our men, right? This is who we want representing our program and our school on Fridays and in the community. I'd take a pay cut to go and work for somebody like that, because a lot of times it's a lonely job. It's a lonely job when you lose. And having the support of people around you, and especially people above you, can make a world of difference in a coach's confidence and a coach's ability to be willing to sacrifice certain things in order to be successful. So, Allatoona, you could have a lot of success there. I definitely need you to ask the hard questions in those interviews, and if that's the reason you don't get hired because you ask them hard questions, well, you kind of have your answer. But ask the hard questions. Are you going to support me when a parent comes up, a booster comes up and says, "Hey, I don't like what he's doing"? Well, this is who I support. This is who we have. So, it would be interesting. Now, In terms of discovery on the complete other end of the spectrum, it would be the Headstone Job Hall of Fame. They're 16 and 84 in their program's history, and they need to go non-region. I cannot stress that enough. I've had more people reach out to me thinking that they go and turn that program around, and they don't understand why that program's not any good. And the reality is, in Gwinnett County, when you build a new school, you know, the probably the most wealthy school system, the biggest school system in the state, well, they finance out all the equipment and all the stuff that needs to start the football program. And before you can make any money as a booster club, you got to pay them back. You got to pay your own school system back. So not only are you having to do that, and you're having to handle that budget, but you know everything's on a curve of your experience, right? So if you're a first year head coach, well, you're going to be at the bottom end of that pay structure because it's based on your years of experience in that role. So you're not going to get paid as much. Now you do get the quote unquote Gwinnett County retirement, great, but you know the reality is Discovery has a lot of kids. If you're a good football player, you're not going to Discovery. You've got a litany of other schools that you can go to because you don't want to go and get your teeth kicked in. You don't want to just be the best. You don't want to be big fish, small pond. And the reality is they're not going to stick with the coach long enough. And again, I think that if people understood what Discovery is and kind of the Hippocratic nature of how Gwinnett County schools operate with, you know, I think seconds are still they're still working to pay all their, you know, quote unquote loans that, you know, a first year head coach went in there, took that job. He left after 1 year. Tony Lottie comes in. Now, the stuff that guy bought, he's got to pay for. So, again, it's just mind blowing that a school system that big who pays their superintendent that much money cannot be like, hey, we're opening up all these schools. You know, we can flip the bill on some of this stuff. It's not that hard. It's really not. And again, school systems can do what they want. They can hire who they want. They can justify anything they want. If they say, well, we can't do that. Yeah, well, explain to me how Rush Probst still has his teaching certificate every time they suspend it. Okay. They can do what they want. It's just a matter of you justifying it. So Discovery, I wish you the best of luck. I honestly do. I really hope y'all can find a way to be successful. It's gonna be tough. There's no doubt about it. I think you need to go non-region, find a way to build something around a coach and lay a foundation. But it's not as easy as, you know, people reached out to me saying, oh, well, the coaches just have to be organized. Well, coaches always, it doesn't matter what job it is. If you're running a lemonade stand, you need to be freaking organized. You know, that's a basic adult task. You know, you gotta be organized as an adult to be successful in anything. So that's a lazy take. But you know, there's been good coaches there, good football coaches. Go look at their region. Tell me how you do. It's difficult. Now, I know Bradwell Institute came open. You know, I know very little about Bradwell, but ultimately, you know, Adam Carter was there for a year, and you know, then he was able to get the Grayson job after I think he went out of state. Now he went to Lowndes. So, you know, obviously it's kind of one of those places where, heck, you might be able to turn something into your career there. And lastly, I want to say, so we had McDonough, Henry County. You know, I think that school opened in 1950 or started playing football in 1951. They're not very historically competitive. It's Henry County. You might get paid pretty well. Can you get kids in the door? Can your admin be on the same page with you? You know, who knows? But outside of that, and then, Mundy's Mill, I think was the other one you mentioned. They're about to hire their fifth head football coach in 6 years. So you tell me who the problem is. If you pay people well enough and you give them the right amount of support, Mundy's Mill and Salem could probably go and have a powwow of admin and coaches and there's probably a lot of similarities in why they keep having to open this job up.
Well, I'm going to respond and react to everything you just said. I thought there was a lot of great points there. And the first one is when you talked about you'd love to go work for somebody that will stand up in front of you and tell the community this, that's not going to happen. That ended when these mealy mouth chicken crap administrators started putting I want community input, and I want to have a panel and a committee to hire my football coach, because that way I don't have to deal with any of the blame. I didn't hire him. He wasn't my guy. It's not. That's who y'all wanted. That's who the committee decided to hire, because nobody is got the guts to stand up and say, this is my guy, like it used to be where the superintendent sat down with a football coach and they talked, what do you need? What do I need to do to get you to come here? Now, if you screw up, I'm going to fire you. The end, period. And okay, fair enough, let's go. But now we get committee hires that come in, so you can go on and forget about any committee hire. No, dog, that ain't gonna cut it. That's exactly what you're dealing with. But they have conditioned and trained everyone in this profession now that that's the way it is, instead of somebody that's not gutless that'll stand up and say, yeah, that's who I hired. It didn't work out. Well, that's on me. I did a bad job of hiring that guy. And then going on to the next one. I think everybody would appreciate if things returned back to that nature. But to your point, you wish there was, that ain't gonna happen. That's wishful thinking for sure. I know you know that, Coach, but that ain't gonna happen. On to Discovery, Coach Groschick did a great job. I mean, he worked his way up the way you're supposed to. You know, he came from Collins Hill. You know, people sending you messages talking about, well, organization. Look, man, they ain't got no players. They don't, and they're playing against people that they ain't got no business playing against, and they're demographically not going to bring out football players. Maybe some football players, but you know, all these people that think they can do better, go for it. Jump on in there. Get on in there and see how you're going to recruit people in. And also, and when you were talking about that, that's something that South Georgia people needed to hear. Middle and South Georgia people don't understand, just like Metro and North Georgia people don't understand South Georgia. South Georgia people some people are going to be shocked and amazed. They're not going to believe that the school and the football program has to pay for the lights, the buildings, everything else, that they have to pay for that it doesn't come from the system itself. That's going to shock some people. Like when we had the travel fee, or you got player fees in Atlanta and Metro and North Georgia. You wouldn't have a team if you charged children down here any money, much less $1,500 to stand on the sideline at Grayson or, wherever. I'm just picking them out. But I don't know how much they charge, but I know it ain't $100. I know it's more than that. Well, they get stuff for it. You know what? The school should provide the basic things that the children in the facility in the program needs to function. That should happen. So you got taxpayers funding it twice. Their tax money is paying for the building, whatever, the school system, do whatever. Then they're getting hit again because people are going out there to raise the money to pay for the stuff that their tax money should have paid for in the first place. So people in South Georgia are not going to understand that. That is not as, you probably just blew some people's minds away when you said, wait a minute, you mean to tell me they got to pay for the lights, or they got to pay for the this and the that, and that? Yes, it does not come out of the county money. Player fees, we hadn't even talked about that, but that's a thing. It's not a thing in Middle and South Georgia, because if it was a thing, you wouldn't have a team, because the children do not have the means to pay to play. So that's just the way that goes.
Well, Coach, I'll tell you this on that front right there, just so South Georgia folks know kind of where that's coming from. The average player fee right now, and again, we're talking public schools. You're not making cuts on the football team in public schools. I think that's the only. I think that's the only sport that doesn't make cuts. But the average right now, based on everything I know, in Northeast Georgia, your average number is right around $875 for a player fee. Now, there's some that are lower than that. I know a team that's at $250. I know a team that's at $175. I know a team that's at $1,400 to play high school football. Now, again, you can find ways to fund that, and you can get a sponsorship, and you can get somebody to help you with that. But ultimately, if you don't pay that, they're also going to find ways to put you to work. They're going to have, the player working those rec ball games, holding chains, working the concession stands to work off the debt, because the budgets are big at the booster clubs with especially up in this area. But again, in order to get a healthy booster club, you gotta find a way to get to that point. And that's my issue with Gwinnett County especially. It's very frustrating for any team to actually have a good jumping off point, because you're also hamstrung by whatever the previous coach spent and said they needed to be successful. So there's a lot, and like you said, taxpayers are going to be charged twice, because not only are they going to flip the bill the first time, but now they're going to have kids and everybody going and asking for their sponsorships. I just think it's disingenuous, and at the end of the day, the amount of grants and amount of e-splost and things that go into what you're able to fund, it's very disappointing that you're going to go ahead and put your coaches behind the 8 ball and say, hey, before y'all can actually spend XYZ, you have a debt here with us at central office. But don't worry, we're not going to listen. Our superintendent's still going to make, $500,000, just, and you'll see them once every 4 years. But that, again, and that's a story for another day. But yeah, so they just wanted to clear that up for them.
Yeah, I remember 20 years ago when I was at Lithia Springs High School, and we had a transportation fee that all athletes had to pay. It was $25. When I told my father that we had that, he went apoplectic. I mean, he lost his mind. Like, I pay tax money for gas to get put in those buses. Why am I having to pay? Why is my child having to pay? And he ain't got a child. He ain't got a grandchild in that system. But just the principle of the thing flew all over him. Just like the principle of charging a player fee. I don't know that we'll ever find common ground between North Georgia Metro people and Middle and South Georgia people when it comes to a player fee, because that is pay to play. I can tell you this. If I pay $1,400 for my kid to be on the team, I better see him out there running around doing something. And it ain't got nothing to do with having money and not having money. It's an expectation. If I'm paying that much money extra for him to play at a public, now if it was at a private school, I get it. But a public school education, he's on a public school team and he's on the team, and you still need me to rip off a check for $1,400. That joker better never leave the field. He better be on he can run the play in and tell the quarterback what we're running. He can block down on extra point. He can be in the wall on the kickoff return. He better never come off the field. But that's not how people think, because that's the way it is. And I'm glad you hit on that, because that's something that is a huge difference between South Georgia, Middle Georgia mentality and Metro, North Georgia mentality. And it's something that is never going to change. It's not. And it also leads us into the next part of the program, which is when we talk about second round playoff matchups. This section of the program is brought to you always by Jimmy Joe's Quick Sack. When you're headed to the game this weekend, just stop at Jimmy Joe's and get you a Slim Jim, some Yoo-Hoo, blue Takis, and an orange Powerade to enjoy at your game. Jimmy Joe's, for all your pregame nourishment. Now, with all of that nonsense out of the way, we got second round matchups. And I talked to you off air about the power rankings and the old traditional way of 1 through 4. And again, you're not going to satisfy everybody, but I'm just going to throw this out there as we talk about the disparity in mindsets between Metro and North Georgia when it comes to players' fees and who plays for what, pays for facilities and things like that. We also might need to look at we might not need the same playoff setup for each classification. We might need to find what works best for this classification. It might not be the best setup for the larger classifications. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But we have some second round matchups coming this Friday. Weather will be a little bit cool. It won't be bad. There's some rain in the forecast at some places, but it's less than 50%. So weather's probably not going to come into play. Coach, what you got going into the second round?
Well, I pray to God it doesn't rain because GHSA only sent home team 2 footballs, so they got to get the wear and tear out of those. Now in 6A, like you said, you got Colquitt having to make its second consecutive trip up here to Gwinnett County. They came up here to Mill Creek and beat them on Friday, and then now Colquitt is coming up here. I want to say they're playing Grayson, if I'm not mistaken, and that's gonna be again. I don't know what Colquitt's travel budget is, right? I'm sure they have great boosters and everything, but I mean it's like when a West Coast team or an East Coast team has to play, the NFC. Like when the 49ers have to come over here and play the Panthers, and then they play the Falcons next week. They just stay out over here because it's too much to go back and forth and all that stuff. It's not that bad, but I mean that's just a pain in the ass. I will say in the bigger classifications, yeah, just split it and go. Let's figure out who our North Georgia champion is and our South Georgia champion is, and then let's just play each other, or find our top, our top 4 teams, and maybe that's 2 North and 2 South Georgia teams that have, all on a side of the bracket knocked everything out North and South Georgia wise, and now you're able to limit some travel. Again, it's common sense things, right? Like, I mean, it takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of creativity. And I know that I'm asking for the moon when it comes to GHSA using the creativity piece here, as well as common sense customer service. But at the end of the day, I think that would, and it also would work for 5A as well. So to me, I think you've got some, pretty solid games that are happening on Friday. In all of it, you have Lee County at Langston Hughes. That should be a really good football game. Hughes is a good football team, and Lee County is as physical as it gets. So that should be a really fun football game to be at. And then you have Houston County at Rome. I think the winner of that's going to have a really good shot at getting to the semifinals and having a shot at the Dome. You also have Jackson County after beating Clinton Academy. They're going to play Milton, who just beat Shiloh. And to be honest with you, I think that's going to be a really exciting football game as well. Jackson County is having incredible success this season, and they're still rolling. I'll be excited to see what they're able to do against 2-time defending champ Milton, and see if Milton's healthy and they're able to wrangle the Panthers in a little bit, because they're definitely running roughshod over a lot of folks. As for 4A, you've got Hainbridge at Central Carroll, you got Cass at Benedictine, and Blessed Trinity at Marist. Now, the Blessed Trinity Marist game, I'm pretty sure going to need to, they're going to do a soft credit pull at the gate for you to attend. So just understand that your credit will get dinged when you arrive. It's just a soft pull though, so it's not going to hurt too bad. But you definitely need to make sure that your finances are in order if you want to attend that game. And then again, you have Cass at Benedictine. It's going to be a really good football game. Again, you're to the point in these second round games. There are no bad football teams left. There's just not. I mean, you just got some really, really solid games that I think just take a look at them and see what you're able to do. And Marist rattled off 10 straight wins after losing to Jefferson, so I think they're hitting their stride right now. And if I didn't want to get a ding on my credit report, I might go to that Blitz Stream Marist game, because that's going to be a good football game. And then in AAA, now you start getting fun, because I really, really like, LaGrange played on Saturday and love their quarterback, love what they do. if you want an offensive football game, go and watch LaGrange and North Hall. LaGrange is coming up and playing North Hall, and Coach Pender and that staff have got a great quarterback, great receivers. Again, that game might be 100-99. It's going to be a good football game. Then you have Peach County at Jenkins, which again should be a really, really good football game. Monroe area has to go to Sandy Creek, and that's going to be tough. But Monroe has athletes. They're going to be able to hold their own. I'll be interested to see if they can get some of those guys loose and get creative on offense. Before I go to the lower ones, Coach, you got anything on those upper classes?
No, it's that time of year where it seems like in the upper classes things settle out a little bit more in the second round as far as getting better matchups, and that I think that has a lot to do with not doing the power ranking. So it'll be interesting to see some of these guys on the road having to travel a little bit. Sounds like some great matchups. I haven't really looked at the bracket. Like I said, I'm still trying to recover from the 21-hour day that was Friday. And but there's going to be some good football this weekend. And going into the lower classifications, there are going to be some pretty decent matchups as well. And there's still going to be a lot of travel, which I'm kind of anti that, obviously. But we'll see what happens. Should be some good games this week in the lower classifications as well.
Yeah, I have one circled that I think, to me, I'm interested to see Miller Grove at Morgan County, just because Morgan County is a very, very well coached football team, fun to watch. Miller Grove is going to be able to, hold their own athletically, and they're going to give them a run for their money. Morgan County can score in a lot of different ways. But I'll be interested to see if Miller Grove can come up to Morgan County and give them a run for their money. You also have Stevens County, who obviously upset Chris. They got to go to number one, Carver Columbus, and that it's going to be tough. But heck, I mean, they already have they're rolling with a little bit of confidence right now. Then you have Pierce County at Carver Atlanta. That's another one that's going to be tough for Pierce. Now, I will say that having Callaway at Thompson, that is being a round 2 game. Yeah, that's almost a quarterfinal type game. That should be a really, really good football game. And then when you get down into that Class A Division I, obviously Berrien County, God bless them, they're sitting there as a 31 seed, beating number 4 ranked Lamar. They're definitely going to have a nice little trip up here, and hopefully they enjoy the sights and sounds and take some good pictures. But who knows? Maybe they're able to keep it rolling, and we're going to see them in the dome. Kudos to them. Now, I will say that Fitzgerald at Dublin should be a hell of a football game. If you like wing T football, brother, that is your place to be on Friday. Swainsboro at Northeast, that's going to be another good football game. Thomasville at Toombs and Bleckley at Worth should also all be some pretty dang competitive football games. And then, there's only 2 games in Class A Division 2. Again, I see why we're going back up to 7 classifications. It's stupid, just how they did the D1, D2 thing. But Emmanuel County, ECI is at Clinch, Brooks is at Johnson. Again, there's going to be some really, really good competitive football games in that D2, because those communities, I'll be honest with you, if you want to find some fun games to go to one of those D2 games. Go to Bowden this Friday and watch Washington Wilkes at Bowden. That's going to be a fun atmosphere to be in. Go and see Mount Zion play Early County, or Hawkinsville at Lincoln County. If you've never been to Lincoln County, now's a good opportunity to go over there. Hawkinsville is going to have their hands full, but that still should be a good football game. Then you have, and I never talk about private schools because I always feel like people get in their feelings when I start going after the private schools. But, you bring it on yourself, so it is what it is. You've got Holy Innocents at Athens Academy. Athens Academy hasn't played in 4 damn weeks. I'm sure they probably already got their shit reconditioned and sent back. it's such a stupid bracket and stupid way to do things, and I hate it for the kids and the coaches that had to, for the last 4 weeks. Are we just practicing 2 days a week? Are we doing a lot of fun team building, going bowling and everything, or what are we doing? Like, let's have an opponent. Let's find a way. Athens Academy, call Prince Avenue and just say, hey, y'all want to scrimmage these next 2 weeks? Because we're obviously not doing anything. Or did you let your team go ahead and get some basketball practice in and go to that second sport for them? Because again, you have 4 weeks. It's absurd. So, you have Wesleyan at Prince Avenue. All of these games are going to feature some very, very, very good football teams that have some kids that are definitely paying the tuition of some of the better kids on that team, and you'll be able to pick those out pretty quick. But it still is going to be some good football. So I wish everybody good luck in round 2, and hopefully your season's able to keep going.
And that pretty much wraps up this week's edition of Sun Coaches Podcast. I'd like to thank Coach Ed, as always, for coming on and sharing his unique perspective on things as the executive director of the Georgia Fired Football Coaches Association. And there will be new members joining, I am sure, this week. Be sure to tune in Thursday as I talk to Coach Holland, the head football coach at Oglethorpe County. That will be released on Thursday. And next week, we'll have second-round reactions, more coaching carousel news, and whatever else the two of us come up with to rant and rave and carry on about. We appreciate you listening and hope that you
come back next week. Coach, if we could, if anybody has a recommendation on anything that you'd like us to cover, if you would send that in a direct message to myself or Coach Lamb here, and we'd love to be able to cover it. Anything that y'all think is worth the time to do so, and we'd be happy to take a look at it. And again, I'm excited to see what we can do in this all season and see if we can get a little change brewing at the GHSA.
Absolutely. Thanks again. And Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7.